This is Dr. Kwame Brown from Move Theory in conjunction with the Good Men Project, and I'm here with Reverend Dr. Wills from First Baptist Church in Hampton, Virginia. What does being a community dad mean to you? What does that conjure in your mind?
Well, it reminds me of my childhood. And it reminds me that although our commitment begins with the epicenter of our own household, you know, kids who have our last names, our biological children, it begins there. It ought not end there. When I grew up, you know, we had a whole lot of dads. And my dad, we knew was at least 40, 50 miles down the road in his office until about 6, 7 o'clock that evening. But we had other dads who were retired. Mr. Jones and gentlemen who would sit on their stoops during the summer months and watch us play stickball, watch us play football, and they were throughout the community. And they assumed and appropriated the responsibility of parenting children that were not their own. And so I think, you know, for dads today, you know, our obligation obviously is to our kids first, but we've got to be concerned about every child, particularly in this day where, unfortunately, you know, many of our kids don't have dads that they can lay hands on. And so I think mentoring becomes very, very important. And be dads to these other kids who need to have voices of love and authority in their lives. Remember that, you know, our care for kids doesn't begin and end with those who are members or those who have our last names.
In your house, what role did play play?
I think it is absolutely essential. And, you know, I had the good fortune of being married to a kindergarten teacher. So I'm going to be a little biased here, but it was built into our household. You know, as kids, we grew up playing and we had a balanced life. You know, Dad was former military and he was retired. And so we did toe the line. You know, we had chores. We cut the grass. We took out the trash. And we had to, you know, wash cars. And we did stuff. But it was balanced with play. And I remember summers that were filled with play. All of that, you know, we brought into our household as a tradition, as an experience, and made sure that, you know, we could balance, you know, the homework and the studying and the rigor of preparation with opportunities to play so that the brain could, you know, exhale.
We seem to be so much more isolated from one another, even within the community, than we used to. You know, I've noticed this dichotomy now between kids either not moving at all and not getting on a plane at all, or being very highly organized. How do you think we can get back to more free play?
Wow, that's a great question, Kwame, because that's what it was when we were growing up. It was very spontaneous, you know, during those summer months. You know, how do we get back to that? And I think it may be a bit of a challenge because I think you're right. You know, our communities are a bit more disconnected these days. You know, technology is a wonderful thing. Of course, we didn't have it back then. I don't know, maybe that contributed. Maybe it pushed us outside. You know, by default, we had to do things, be more creative.
Right.
But perhaps, you know, it begins, you know, in the church and in communities where we have the attention of parents and children, and it is generational. We can have conversations. We have folk like you come in and speak and, you know, begin the dialogue and raise the awareness. You know, it may be that we're not even aware of how much we've drifted. So maybe that's the first step, you know, raising our awareness. You're helping to inform the next generation of leaders. And, you know, one day, you know, we've got to check out and we're not going to be here. But this is a wonderful planet. And as a dad in that microcosm called the family, you know, we have an opportunity to inform them with regard to values and ethics, morality. And, you know, we might not be able to control the national culture or the international culture, but we have an opportunity as dads to impact that household and kids who will live into the next generation. And so that's what excites me, is, you know, having that opportunity to have a positive impact on the next generation. And we become, you know, a part of that continuity, that continuum.
And some of us exhibit behaviors that we normally attribute to males. How do you think we reconcile that with, you know, understanding more of the female side?
You know, dads can do that well. You know, we had a great relationship with, you know, our daughters and raising them. Our daughter, Whitney in particular, you know, from middle school to high school, come in and chat about her school day. And when dating became issues, there were some guys that were, you know, coming on a little too strong, and she would come home and we'd chat about them. She'd give me their telephone number and I'd call them. I'd say, look, you got to back up. You know, my daughter feels a little uncomfortable. I said, are you sure you want me to do this? I said, because you got to go back to school tomorrow.
Right.
And she said, no, Dad, you know, give them a call. And so I think, you know, our daughters really appreciate, you know, when dads step up, and our dads and our men, and can share, you know, their thoughts from a man's perspective, because there were times when she really did not understand where they were coming from. Yeah. And so I said, you know what, I was their age once, and so, you know, I've never met them, but let's just chat about what the possibilities, what that scenario might look like and how it might play out. And they really did appreciate it. To be a dad that was, you know, there, that they could call on any time of the day, and intervene if need be.
It's important too for us to share our humanness and who we once were,
right,
with our kids. And I certainly try to do that with my students. I am not sure I have the words to express how much this conversation with you means to me, and as an example to me as a father. And that's what I told the Good Men Project, that I wanted to bring the men that I knew, that I looked to as a father, for example, and this is one of them. So you're welcome for getting to hear from Reverend Dr. Wills today. So,
well, thank you. I'm humbled, man. I appreciate the opportunity to share.
Oh,
it's been great.
No, thank you.
Thank you.